Hey y'all, welcome back to this week's episode of AMA Friday with Amy Miller at Recruiting in Yoga Pants. This is the channel where you can ask me anything about recruiting and I'll do my best to give you a truthful and possibly snarky answer. All right, so this week we are finishing up our discussion around should recruiters review every incoming resume. Hot topic. A lot of people mad at me over this. So last week, I'll link to that video up above. Last week, we talked about my personal philosophy on this idea. I talked about what job seekers can and should or should not worry about when it comes to this topic. This week, we're going to dig into how I've done it. So my actual lived professional experience and some mechanisms that I would recommend my recruiting friends think about, especially for my high volume friends. Like, there are some things that you can do, and you may be doing these things, but maybe I'll give you some ideas on things you haven't thought of or a different way to maybe pitch solutions to your leadership. See if we can get you some support and some help in this, okay? Because this is important. And at the end of the day, what I really care about is that every applicant gets fair consideration. Every applicant deserves fair consideration. Now, how do we define fair consideration? That's where it gets tricky, because I'm going to tell you right now, if you are a recent grad and you've just come out of college and maybe you've just gotten an MBA and you've got a background in marketing, why y'all applying to senior engineering roles? Because I've seen it more than once. And I understand there's this mythology out there, these people that are cosplaying as job search experts are telling you, just shoot your shot, and they get really worked up when people like me kind of poke at that a little bit and say, maybe not the best idea. I don't care. Be mad. We'll get you a cape. You can be super mad. It's all good. Hi, Rage Watchers. But here's the thing. I can look at your resume in 10 seconds or less, and based on the data you are providing me, I can tell you very quickly if you are or are not a potential fit for this role. That, my friends, is fair consideration, okay? Now, if your resume does give me some indicators that there's a fit here, maybe I'm not 100% sure, but there's enough here that I can safely say, yep, compliance check, meets the basic qualifications. Yep, there's enough here. I want to learn more. I am happy to get on the phone with you and fill in any of those knowledge gaps, assuming that I don't have other candidates who frankly did a better job illustrating their fit. That's where it gets tricky. Okay, let's discuss. I did some math ahead of time, so I wasn't clicking in your ear here with the calculator. A lot of the pushback that we get on this is we'll hear people say things like, well, you get thousands of resumes. You can't possibly read them all. Yeah, probably not. But I can skim them pretty quickly. Here's what that looks like. Let's pretend that I got 500 resumes overnight. I don't. Some might. I don't. But let's pretend that I do. If I'm taking 10 seconds a resume, this is roughly an hour and a half of work for me to just quickly scan through these, clear yeses, clear nos, maybe pile. This is not difficult. Okay, I think my record was 279 and it took me like 2 hours, but that is including going back and doing that secondary screen, right? Going back and say, okay, I've got a bunch of people in my yes column. Let me go look at them again. To go through the first like 279, just to do a very quick like yes, no, I eliminated half of them in like 20 minutes. Like whether it was you weren't eligible to work in the US without sponsorship, because that was a deal breaker for that role. Maybe again, like the new grad example, we get a lot of those, and I love your enthusiasm. I do, but no, it's not going to work. There's lots of like very clear indicators that this is an immediate no. And so we can screen those out pretty quickly. As much as it pains me, it's part of the job. That's what we got to do. So how do you do this at scale? All right. Well, let me give you an example from Google, because I told you I'm going to give you some examples from places I've personally worked and how we do this at scale. If you've got, a small unknown company, you're working on super highly targeted niche roles that don't get many applicants, things like that, this is easy for you because you're not getting the volume. You can look at the 40 resumes you got in a week, okay? You can. All right, you didn't get that many. I've had some of those roles, I know. But I recognize that there are high volume roles. There are popular companies. There are a lot of people, especially in this market, who are taking those chances and really just, I get it. I know what it's like to be a job seeker too. So how do we do this at scale? Google uses what they call evergreen recs. And so what this means is that all of the direct applicants are funneled through a public-facing position, which is a general job description. We're looking for software engineers to work on an embedded software engineer in these 5 locations, and apply here. Okay, that's an evergreen role. It's just like a general. Everybody funnels through there. There's a single entry point for all of those applicants. Now, what you don't see on the back end, now keep in mind, this is my experience when I worked there. It's been a few years. If it has changed, listen to a Google recruiter, not me, because I'm not there anymore. But when I was there, this is what we did. I would work with my hiring managers to create our internal job posting. So this is where I'm specifically saying, I need an embedded software engineer for YouTube. And they need to do these things and look like this. That internal role would be tied to that externally facing evergreen role. All those applications that came into that single funnel were then looked at by a person. Google employs what they call channel specialists, and these are the folks who are behind the scenes. They're looking at all of those incoming applications and they're sending them out to the different recruiters like myself to then review against our open roles and see if there's a fit. So there's a live person twice that eyeballed your resume. Done this at Microsoft. Big company, working on software, lots of applicants. We would do, prior to knockout questions, we would do what we called a Boolean poll. What is a Boolean poll? This is where I've posted a role for a software engineer, and I need 3 years of experience in, software engineering, and they had to have experience in like C# or C++ or whatever. No, anyway, I'm mixing those up. You get where I'm going with this. I've been out of software a long time. Don't laugh at me. But we would write a Boolean string, right? And so maybe it's something like software and engineering, do a little wild card there, and C++ or .NET, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, so maybe something like that. Maybe I got my little Boolean string. This would not be a real Boolean string. I just made this up. But I'm going to, and my recruiting coordinator would do this for me, I would create this very simple string that pulled just like 1 or 2 key things that had to be on a resume. And we would pull that through. We would run that string, and everyone who met that criteria would get put into a review pile. So everyone else is still there. Nobody's left the ATS. No one's left the requisition. But I've pulled through the people that meet the initial criteria, and I'm starting there. And hopefully I find my person. We interview, we do all the things, but I could always go back and still sanity check and see, were there people that we'd missed or just didn't get picked up because they didn't have the right word. That's the keyword match scares me, because I don't want to rely on that. I may use it as an initial filter, but I always want to reserve the option of going back and double checking. And again, those people will live there until I do something with them, either read them or disposition them or what have you. Okay. Then we moved to knockout questions. So right before I left, we moved to a new ATS and we enabled knockout questions. I've worked a few places that enable knockout questions. And that is that application question that says, do you have 3 years of experience writing code in one of these languages? Are you eligible to work in the United States without sponsorship? Whatever. I mean, you can make those whatever you want. Now, best practices is make them measurable, make them relevant to the role, make them compliant. Like, there's some rules. But the idea there is that we are allowing people to self-select. Verify that you're qualified for this job. Yes, wonderful. You're now moved to the review bucket. The thing with knockout questions is we can enable the system to automatically disposition people who answer no to required questions. There are always going to be people who lie. It's unfortunate. It does not actually help you. I will still look at your resume and I'll be like, this person actually wasn't truthful in their knockout question. They shouldn't be in this folder. Oh well, disposition, and I move on with my life. That's what's going to happen. That's the only thing that happens, is you guarantee that I saw your resume and I still said no and dispositioned you. It's not worth it, you guys. I promise. An angrier recruiter might make a note or two in the ATS. I'm just saying. Anyway, so knockout questions can be a great way to filter. Okay? And finally, this is maybe the most powerful mechanism at all. If you genuinely cannot keep up with your applicant workflow, you post your role for the minimum amount of time required. For a lot of companies, there's a 5-day posting rule, and you take that damn thing down the minute you can. Because if you genuinely, and this is what you're going to tell your manager, if you honestly are going to look me in my face and say, Amy, I can't do it, it's not sustainable, I get thousands and thousands and thousands of resumes, okay, great. You are now going to sit down, and part of your strategy is to say, we get overwhelmed by applicants. I need one of these fixes. I need to enable knockout questions. I need to enable some kind of compliant filtering Boolean string mechanism, or I'm going to pull our postings after the required amount of time so that I can do the right thing for the people who have applied. You choose, boss. Because what we're not going to do is leave a role hanging out there accepting countless applications over and over again that you're never going to touch. That is not fair to you. And it is certainly not fair to the job seeker who's putting in the time and effort and emotional energy to provide the information that you're not getting to. And I am saying this with all the love and affection in the world, y'all. We have to be honest with ourselves, with each other, and with our job seekers about what is reasonable, possible, and probable. Okay? If you put yourself on a calendar, put yourself on a strict schedule, I'm going to look at applicants for this amount of time every single day, you can in most cases, not all, and I respect that, in most cases, you keep that applicant flow nice and clean. You don't get a buildup. You don't end up with hundreds and hundreds of roles or applicants that you can't get to. Okay? So you get a rhythm going. I think most of us know this already. You get a rhythm going where this is just part of your daily workflow. I'm doing this, 20% of my week is spent on this. The other 80% is spent doing all the other things recruiters do. Consulting, educating, scheduling, coordinating, influencing, making offers, all the things, okay? Now, for my recruiter friends, if you are genuinely struggling with this, I mean this, I'm going to offer you right now a coaching session with me. Bring your workload, bring your applicant pool, bring all the numbers and details and data as much as you can share with me. And we are going to figure out a strategy to help you give every person fair consideration. It may mean one of these mechanisms we've talked about. It may mean getting really, really clear on how long a role is going to be out there and the minute you're going to pull it down, which I understand can impact your candidate pool. Nobody says you can't post it again if you go through all 1,000 people and nobody's a fit. But you owe it to yourself and to the job seekers to shut the door when you're full up. Okay? All right, y'all. I hope that helps. blog accompanying this, so check that out too. Let me know down below if you would be interested, my recruiter friends, if you would be interested in having that conversation. Maybe you just need to bounce ideas off of somebody, an objective third party who's willing to listen. I'll be that person for you. Let me know down below. And as always, we'll see you next week.